Good morning on a brisk morning today. We've had our first frost overnight, the first frost for the fall of 2022. We knew it had to happen and we knew it was coming, but boy, it's quite a surprise now to see frost glistening on the plants out here. Today's hike, I'm going to be looking for the white closed or bottle gentian. I know they're out here, or they've been out here in the past. I've documented them here before, taken some pictures thanks to information shared from a friend up here. But I haven't seen them yet this year. I don't know if I'm going to find a few, if I'm going to find many. Don't know if I'm going to find them at all, but I'm going to go look. I'm going to take you along. Like I often do, I shoot pictures of other things that I find interesting and I share them either during the video or certainly at the end of the video. All depends on what I find. So let's go take this walk. But before we do, I want to show you just how pretty this first frost is. It's really a nice morning to be out. And hopefully it'll be a productive morning when it comes to finding those gentians. Let's get out there, let's take this hike, let's see if we can find them. When we get a frost like last night, that starts to spell the end for many of the plants out here. Hopefully it will also spell the end for many of the insects, the annoying insects that we get, the gnats and the mosquitoes. In case you wondered, I backed up because I saw some interesting plant here that I want to take a picture of. But this is the beginning of the end for some of the more troublesome parts of being out in nature in Iowa this time of year. So things should get better here for a while before the snow starts to fall. Sometimes if you want to find the uncommon species or just the nice photo opportunities, it takes some effort to get out there. Such as today. I'm probably going to get damp. It's, well, just above freezing right now. So it could get a little bit uncomfortable, but that's what it takes sometimes to find these plants, to find these photo opportunities, and I'm willing to do it. As I was driving in, I saw coyote running across the field. I'm hoping maybe we'll intercept paths, but I doubt it. Very seldom does that happen. It's also fall, so there's a possibility of maybe kicking up some deer or path crossing, which would be neat because the buck should be hit their prime as the rut's coming on. So this could be interesting. Anyway, this is what you go through to find these flowers. My hike was worth it. I have found the white closed or bottled gentian, depending on which way you learned it. This is what the plant looks like. You can see that it's deep in this tall grass. It's going to be kind of challenging to make pictures, but I've got a lot of equipment with me that will allow me to focus close. But there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's the plant that I was looking for. It's one that you don't find too many places. The blue colored, or the I guess it's blue, that's much more common. This white one, I only know of a couple of places where this one grows. So I'm going to shut this camera off now and take a few photos for you. As you can tell by the photos, I'm obviously past the peak of the blooming for this white closed or bottle gentian. That's okay. I've still been able to document that they've made it another season out here. I'm going to go look around now. I know there might be a few other plants out here. I'm going to go take a look, see if I can find them, and maybe one of them will have blossoms that are not quite as far along in their blooming phases for 2022. Nonetheless, the plants are out here. That's a good thing. I've lucked out. I found yet another grouping of this plant. Like the other versions that I found, we've got most of the blossoms are past their peak, but this one too has one or two that are still, that may or may not bloom. I don't know after the frost. I guess I've never followed them to know, will the frost stop any further blooming or not. And really, this is about as much as they do bloom. They don't open up. If you're expecting that they would open up, these plants don't open up. They stay closed, and then the insects that pollinate, they go in and crawl into the enclosed area of the plant, and then that's how the plant is pollinated. So they don't open up like say the fringe gentian does. My technique for photographing this white closed or white bottle gentian is really pretty straightforward. I've got the blossom there, you can see. I've got for this particular shot, I'm using an 80 to 200 millimeter zoom lens. On the front of the lens, I have a Canon 500D close-up filter that I can just screw on, and that's what's allowing me to do this close focusing. As you can see, I've got that screwed on the front. Yep, it's a Canon, but it fits on a Nikon. You just have to have the threads that match. And then for my camera here, I've got to adjust my focus since I touched that filter. And you probably aren't able to see it, but through the camera, then I'm able to focus close and shoot the pictures using that 80 to 200 millimeter lens to get a decent picture of that blossom. Now that's going to give me a view of that blossom that's a wider view. I can't focus right on the one individual blossom. I'm going to get the whole clumping. So I'm going to change my camera or my lens out now. I'm going to put a 70 to 300 on, and I'll have that Canon close-up filter on the front of it, and that will allow me to focus right pinpoint on the individual blossom that's still not, well, it's not past its peak yet. So I'm going to take a pause here, change out my lens, and I'll show you how that works. I've now switched out that lens. I've got a 70 to 300 millimeter lens on. This is a Nikon lens with that Canon 500D close-up filter. To make that filter fit on this lens, it has a smaller objective lens. I use a step-down ring. And again, I don't know that you'll be able to see it, but that will allow me to focus so much closer that I can get just the tip of this blossom, of the still thriving blossom against the dried out blossoms that you'll see in the pictures here. But by doing this lens setup, I can get in super close, whereas I'm not able to do that with the 80 to 200 millimeter zoom lens. Now let's talk about why it's important when you have a photo scene to really look around and examine your subject. So I could have stopped at this view, and it would have been an accurate representation of what this gentian looks like, and it's even rather interesting because we don't often see them. But by moving the camera around to the back or to the other side, I'm able to look at this gentian and see this, where I've got nice interesting angles with the still white blossom against the dried blossoms. And by using this close-up filter, I can create quite what I think is a better image compared to the first one that was more of a specimen shot. According to my GPS, there might be at least one more clump of these bottled white closed gentians somewhere in this area. So I'm going to do some wandering here. Hopefully I won't lose my gear. I may just wander without the gear on my back. I'm going to go take a look, see if I can find them, and if I do, and if there's something worth shooting pictures of, I'll include you. Folks, this trip just keeps getting better. As I was getting ready to walk out, and I was just looking around, expanding my search, I did find one clump of plants of these white gentians that are all pretty much looking still fresh yet. I don't know what the frost did to them, if anything, but look at that. Those blossoms are are still looking good, and some of them you can look down into. After finding this clump with so many fresh blossoms, I thought I'd show you another technique that I use. In this, I've got the 18 to 200 millimeter lens on the camera. I've got the 70 or the Canon 500D close-up filter on the end of that lens. And notice the position of the camera, the angle to the blossoms. And then behind them is a dark spot, a dark shadow created by the plant itself. I'm using that dark shadow for a background, a natural dark background, which will then give me this type of a composition that I can go in, shoot a few pictures. I'm exposing for the blossom, letting the background fall black, and creating nice images. So simple. You just have to be watching your setup, what you have, and make sure that your exposure is proper. And it gives you a really nice, almost artistic type picture. Through this video, I've been referring to this plant as the white bottle gentian or white closed gentian. Technically, it's called the plain gentian, P-L-A-I-N gentian, or pale gentian. I think we all get the idea. It's a white gentian versus the common, more commonly seen blue closed or bottle gentian. This has been a really productive hike this morning. Found more of those flowers than I thought. The plain gentian, or as I referred to them earlier, the white bottled closed gentian, also known as the pale gentian. Anyway, this has been a really productive trip. Was able to share with you several different examples of how I take my photos. So for those of you budding photographers out there who weren't familiar with some of the tips and techniques, I hope it was beneficial. For those of you who just enjoy wildflowers, well, guess what? You got to really see some interesting plants that aren't too common here in Northeast Iowa. In fact, I only know of a couple of locations, this being one, and this one really looking good this year. I'm going to head back to the Jeep, head home, put the video clips together, add some pictures to it, and share that with all of you. So, I hope it was worthwhile, and I do thank you for watching.